Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. It's been a little bit without some conversations, but Blathering conversations have returned. I had to take a little time off. Sickness, bad back, some holidays, travel. You know the drill, but we're back. We're here. We're hanging out with a good friend of mine, one of the best. His name, you see his face. It's Johnny LOQUASTO. Johnny, welcome, my friend. Welcome.
Well, you know what they say, when you have a bad back, have a physical therapist on the Blathering, and that's what we're doing.
You know what? We're going to talk about the time that you saved me from expensive medical bills by telling me, no, you didn't tear your rotator cuff, idiot. Just stretch like this. You know,
I think I put my hands on you, didn't I? Like Jesus?
you did. You are
Yeah.
you're the Jesus of comedy, Johnny. And I don't
Well,
know why that's not in the marketing. One of the things that is in the marketing is his latest comedy special, Saudi Stepdad. We're going to talk about that in the show as well. And there's some big themes in your life, Johnny, that we're going to get to. Working hard to make your dreams come true, getting those dreams, losing those dreams, and then in that finding maybe the bigger dreams and finding your path forward. But I can't get to the serious stuff without asking, where the hell are you?
well, first off, I'm not the Jesus of comedy because Jesus sold way more tickets. But secondly,
That's true. My apologies to you and Jesus.
yes, he's getting booked a lot more. I am on a cruise ship right now. I'm finishing up a 10-day cruise full of stand-up shows. This ship's actually pretty cool. It's got a comedy club on it, but we've had shows like 7 out of 10 nights, and we've officially reached the point where me and the other comic on board, I think we know people are just kind of tired of us because we've already burned collectively. Each of us have already burned over 100 minutes of material, and they're putting us in the theater one time tonight for like an 18 and over show, but we're only doing 20 minutes each. Since we pretty much said, we're like, hey guys, we're doing a best of. We're not doing 20 minutes of new stuff because we ain't got it. We're doing a best of. Come on.
You've seen us for 10 days in a row. I'm going back to the post-it notes from my youth to give you jokes.
Dude, so I went through my hard drive during the cruise and I found like sets on like my Vimeo from over a decade ago. I watched them and I actually found some bits I forgot about. And I'm like, okay, I might be able to bring these back. So,
you know what? Going through the old joke books or checking out, the YouTube clips you've made private because you don't want anyone to see them anyways, and going, oh,
big time.
that was a good take. That was good. Johnny and I know each other now. We've known each other now and known of each other for 15 years or so. We worked together in comedy. We've worked together in pro wrestling. And I'm sure pro wrestling seems to come up a lot on my show, whether it's our first guest was pro wrestler, the outlaw Adam Knight, Kyle Lewis, who's a big wrestling guy and comic as well. So we're definitely going to get to that, Johnny. But I was thinking, where do I start with Johnny? And you are without a doubt always considered and always described as one of the nicest guys in whatever business you're in. How did that come to be? And do you sometimes consider that a curse?
Ooh, man, it's so funny. My wife and I were just talking about that 2 hours ago. Swear to God. As far as being nice, I don't try to be. You just have to be who you are, especially when you're in entertainment. I feel like if you don't stay true to who you are, you're going to get lost, especially whether it be in Los Angeles or say New York or like any major entertainment city. You and I have both seen people crash and burn, or we see people just slowly burn and then they just kind of like disappear because it's really easy to get caught up in all the superficial shit that really doesn't matter. So for me, my thing was I'm always going to be a professional because I think, we all have our insecurities, but when it comes to my talent, that's one thing I'm not insecure about. So it's like, why wouldn't I help the guy next to me? Why wouldn't I help the girl next to me? Why wouldn't I, do whatever I can to make someone better around me? You know what I mean? And when it comes to physical therapy, I'm just lucky that I got my PT degree before I ever stepped foot on a stage. So when it comes to comedy or combat sports, like I've lost count of how many people I've helped with injuries. Because look, a lot of people when you're chasing a dream, health insurance is the last thing you really think about. So when people get hurt, of course I want to help them out because that's just the right thing to do. So second part of the question, is it a curse? I feel like it has been a little bit. So I was just talking to my wife about it. I was having one of those, the last 24 hours have been one of those days where I feel like I want to do everything and there's not enough time and I don't know where to start. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Life and career, or just, or every food group on the cruise ship.
Oh, yeah. I'm tired of the food too. No, I mean,
Great.
family and life, great, but when it comes to career, like right now, like I'm dead set on doing as much play by play as I can.
Mhm.
And it's like I know what I can offer to any company. Like I really think I make any company better, but yet here
Mm.
I sit with no contract, not really sure
Right.
how to take that next step. And I just told her, I'm like, look, I'm just gonna let you know these last 24 hours, I've been in a mental funk.
Mm.
I know what I can do. I just don't know how to do it and how I can
Right.
make that happen. And she kind of always talks me off, not the ledge because I'm not near a
Mm.
ledge, but she always says like, yeah, but look at all the things you do have. Look at all the things you are doing. You have your health,
Mhm.
you have everything going on around you. And if you keep putting out better energy, those things are going to come to you, you know?
Mm.
And so,
Mm.
luckily
Mm.
she's very, very good. I mean, she's a professional life coach, but like with me, I
Yeah.
think she's kind of just a slap upside the back of the neck, whenever I need it.
Does she ever, this is, by the way, and that's great advice, and we can continue that trade, but does she ever, I've met your wife, and she's absolutely wonderful, a ball of energy and you know, hope, all wrapped up in this wonderful, just person in your life. Does she ever just try new life coach things out on you? Like,
If
hey,
she
I'm working on a theory, Johnny. Does this work?
if she does, she doesn't tell me, so I don't know. Maybe.
It's amazing. It's amazing. No, I asked because like, yeah, some people might say I'm nice. I'm really I'm a grump, but it's just a theme with you. Oh, Johnny. Oh God, he's one of the nicest guys, and it's 100% true. And I just wondered if you're ever in a corner going, no, no, I'm dangerous too. Treat me as a 360-degree person, not this nice guy. But
Yeah.
it's so natural to you, and it's so who you are. And I've benefited from it because again, creaky elbow.
And also, you're not a grump. I've never you could call yourself a grump. I've never once seen you be grumpy to anybody. Like, you're one of the, a small collection of people that anytime I see them, it's like a nice little, ray of sunshine, you know? So, even though you're in very creepy green lighting right now.
Yeah, well, I like my Blathering studio. I like the lights low, so I don't have to face the truth about myself. But I'll take that truth. I'm working
Yeah.
on taking compliments, Johnny. And if I'm one of those oh my gosh, it's a rainy day, but it's still sunny out kind of grumps that also bring sunshine, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Dude, rainy days are good though. Like, sometimes a rainy day is you just need that kind of day to have an excuse to
Yeah.
do nothing. And even though I'm not good at that, just it's nice if you have someone around you. Like, obviously on a rainy day, you have a gorgeous woman, that you live
Yeah.
with and that you're spending your
Yeah.
life with, say, hey, guess what,
Yeah.
babe? We could just do nothing. So rainy days have their benefits.
Rainy days and sunshine don't always get me down. Yeah, you do work hard. Have always been a hard worker, and always. I love that you started this by saying, "I know what I can do," and I'm confident in my skills. But that did you have to earn that for yourselves? Like as you've grown in your career and gotten better and worked hard, were you ever in doubt, or is that something you've always had in you? Does that
Ness, I
make sense?
mean, self-doubt is always
Yeah.
around. I mean, especially whether it be pretty much anything, whether it be stand up or whether it be play by play, like predominantly those
Mm.
two things. Like, it's weird. Like, it's like I have all the confidence I think I need in myself,
Yeah.
but not the confidence in knowing how to get the right people to sign off, if that makes sense. And
That's
that's,
where I'm living, Johnny. That's where I'm living
yeah.
right now. I feel not to. I feel I'm more myself than I ever have been, and I just don't know what to do with that and who's going to sign on with that. Like you said, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, because I think you and I think some of it is maturity with aging, and some of it is just
Mhm.
the more experience you get in everything you do, you obviously are going to get better. And so I'm just at the point where it's like, yes, humility is important. I think it's always
Yeah.
important to be humble, but being truthful is more important. And I'm at the point now where, like, I'm just going to be honest. If I think I'm really good at something, if I think I'm better than a lot of what I'm seeing on television is, I'm just going to be honest and say, yes, I am, because the proof is in
Mhm.
the pudding. And that's kind
Yeah,
of where I'm at right now.
that's
Like,
great.
I see a lot of things in both my lines of work per se, aside from
Mhm.
voiceover, because voiceover is another whole ball game. But like, when it comes to play by play or stand up, I'm seeing so much out there where I'm just like, okay, I
Mhm.
know I'm not far off. because what I'm seeing right now is not any better than me. It's just a
Yeah.
matter of time and opportunity. And, whatever luck is, I don't even know what luck is, but maybe it's a little bit of that too.
Luck to me is the lottery. Everything else is preparation, time, effort, and you're getting opportunities, but also making the most of them and leaving that impression. And that, going back to the nice thing with you, that is never to be an insult or be used against you. You being nice is exactly how you described it. You know that if you sign up Johnny LOQUASTO to be in part of your event, show, pay-per-view event, whatever it is, he's going to be a positive part of it, and that causes people to come back and want to work with you again anyways. So that's
the frustrating thing is when it's like, why aren't these companies realizing this? Or like, why isn't the right person? It's like, and you and I, this goes, but you and I know pro wrestling very, very well. And you know what I'm talking about. There are a lot of issues in professional wrestling right now that
a little bit
could easily be fixed with common sense and professionalism. And I'm just like, hey guys, I'm here, like I'm around. Let's go. So
yeah. And there's so many areas to dive in, and this all leads back to your latest comedy special, Saudi Stepdad. We're going to talk about that. You describe it online as a passion project, but it's got to be more than that. It's you put so much into it. But before we get to that, that's kind of where we are now. Yeah, you and I was trying to comedy, stand up way back in the day. I used to be more towards the south and the beach, right? And I used to drive. There was a show I drove to. You were part of one of my retirements from comedy. You don't know this. You booked me and Sam Ventura, my good buddy at the time, good dude. And we drove down 2 hours to like Huntington Beach to a bar and grill and did a show.
Tumbleweeds.
You paid me, Tumbleweeds. That's it. You paid me like $10 because you were a guy who paid your comics. And it was an okay set. People who were there for the show, but people were upset because we had to turn off like the Laker game. And I just remember thinking, I'm not happy with myself. I'm going to stop. It wasn't you, it wasn't the show, it wasn't anything. I was just like, this is not where I want to be right now, which now I do want to be. So it's interesting. But so I always had that memory. Johnny LOQUASTO. Oh yeah, I retired after that one show in my brain.
Well, I can tell you when that was. I ran that show from 2007 to 2009. It was almost like a full 2 years, and I was actually in that bar not too long ago. It is still the same shithole that it was back then.
I remember 2 hours down. I was like, this can't be it. This can't be it. But I stopped too soon. But from there, you and I worked in pro wrestling together in Millennium Pro Wrestling. Me as Tex Donnie, you as owner, Johnny LOQUASTO. We did a show. We did one of the first online things I ever did. You, me, and Ryan Katz, GQ Money did Off the Ropes. And that's over 12 years ago, Johnny?
Oh, way more than that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. God, crazy. 2010 range is where I met Ryan. So around that time. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
That was. Do you remember the early heady days of digital media and pro wrestling colliding?
Man, it's so long ago at this point. I remember we went to this one studio. I forget what the company was called, but I mean,
apartment. Yeah.
And I want to say, like, I don't know, was podcasting even a thing at that point? It must have been.
Podcasting was the thing, but this idea of doing a live show in a studio and live streaming or putting views out, YouTube was around, but it was this new version of it off to the side. And I remember one of our episodes got like 100 views, and it was like the most viewed on the network because normally it had like 12 views because people weren't watching. But it's you, me, and Ryan had a great time. Yeah, we go down to that apartment in Hollywood. I remember. From there, though, things you really you picked up in a lot of wonderful ways from that point on, from all of our humble beginnings, those 2-hour shows and bars. And for those that don't know, but I'm sure there's some who are, you got into the pro wrestling thing. And I remember you and I having a conversation during the Off the Ropes time where you're talking about Marquez saying, hey, he wants me to come and do some stuff. And that kind of started that journey. Talk to me about that journey, your life as a wrestling fan, your life in wrestling. I want to go into that because that has some wonderful ups and some challenging downs.
Yeah, no doubt. And I apologize if I seem slow at all. It's just the Wi-Fi is very sketchy on the ship, so hopefully we stay on a strong connection the whole time.
It's good. It's the waves of the ship going up and down. I see.
Exactly. You should hear the drain in my sink in here. So yeah, 2000. So I'd already done stand up for about 5 years, and I got into on camera hosting because I won this comedy contest at CBS Mobile right when mobile content was beginning on cell phones. So I basically learned how to host on the fly. Like teleprompter came easy to me, talking to the camera came easy, that kind of thing. Led to some more hosting stuff. And this one cameraman I knew, we were talking about wrestling one day. Thought nothing of it. A few months down the road, David Marquez reached out to me and said, "Hey, I was talking to so-and-so. I think you might be a great option for our new television show." So we meet at a Starbucks in the Valley. And he's like, "Hey, I'm starting a weekly professional wrestling television show affiliated with the NWA. I think you would be great for interviews." And he's like, "I can't promise you anything, but do you want to try it?" I was like, "I'm in. Let's go." And that led to being part of United Wrestling Network ever since, doing everything from interviews to backstage stuff, eventual color commentary, then play-by-play, a little bit of ring announcing, everything. And then, you know, for years, I just loved it. I didn't really think anything deeper. I was like, dude, I'm working in wrestling. This is great. I never thought WWE was even an option. But then once I started doing play-by-play, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I think I'm pretty good at this, but I don't know what the next step is. And so it became a dream to be with, like, it always was a dream since I was a little kid. But as you become an adult, that dream doesn't always seem real. It doesn't always seem possible.
Right.
And so over the years, I said, you know what? I'm just going to keep doing the best I can every single time we do television. I'm going to keep trying to stand out. I'm going to keep trying to be professional and call great matches for the talent in the ring. But then over the years, you have friends and colleagues who end up going to WWE or other companies that are on television. You're like, oh, this is interesting. And then one thing led to another. They reached out in early 2019 and said, "Hey, we may have an opening. Can you send your stuff?" And my car had just gotten broken into like a week earlier at a wrestling show. And I lost my computer bag, my hard drive, everything. So I had to scramble and like rip anything I had off the internet. I remember this wrestling promotion I worked for in Ring of Pakistan. We were the first group to ever bring wrestling to Pakistan ever. Wow. I even reached out to them. I said, "Can you please send me footage from the event we did 2 months ago? I'm begging you." Within 24 hours, they sent me footage. I'm like, oh my God. So
nice.
I was able to put it all together, send them some stuff, had a second phone interview. And sure enough, I remember I was, still working as a PT. I was at my hospital in downtown LA in my scrubs on 4 hours of sleep, running around the hospital. And I was about to walk into a patient room. I feel the phone ring, and it's a certain person from WWE. And I was like, oh, this might be important. So I ran to one of the windows because the hospital was so old, the reception was terrible. So I ran to one of the windows. Yeah.
Take your head out.
So I ran to one of the windows, and I was like, "Hello." He's like, "Hey, it's so-and-so from WWE." I said, "Okay. Hey, what's up?" He goes, "I got a question for you." I said, "Okay, I hope I have an answer." He goes, "How would you like to work for WWE?" And I said, "Are you picking me?"
Yeah.
He said, "No. Most people, we would fly in for an audition, but with your body of work and all the people who already vouched for you here, we need to fly you across the country. And we just we need you to move to Florida." So
wow.
I got ready to move. They told me not to tell anybody, so I only told a very small group of people. I kept it quiet.
Right.
And I was off to Orlando.
Ah, man. Yeah, I remember hearing the news after, I think I heard it through Makuga first, this idea of you going out there. And it was such a victory. It was such a victory, for a shared victory for those who have known you for so long. That's an amazing thing, man. Because again, we're talking about the highs and the lows, but that's like you said, it was the dream you thought it was unattainable. And there's the dream on your phone happening. It's real.
Especially at an age. I got to an age where I didn't think it was going to be possible because, generally a lot of companies, they want to hire the youngest people possible. But I guess, age really didn't come into play. It's like, what can you do? Like, are you talented enough to handle it? And I'm proud of everything I did there. Like, I have no regrets. I spent every single second I could learning and being a sponge, and that job was my life. And I got a lot out of it. It honestly got me 80% better as a broadcaster. I learned so much there that I now use in MMA and boxing and still in wrestling. It translates to anything you call. And so, it's just, it's crazy to think about. It's almost like a dream now, because after the pandemic, so much stuff doesn't feel like it really happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the next chapter of that chapter of your life, the next page, I should say, is it didn't last for various reasons. The pandemic hits, the company WWE has to go through these massive changes or layoffs and everything as all of us adjust to continuing in that situation, and you ended up losing the gig, right? If I'm saying that correctly.
Yep.
Better way to say it. What is that horrible feeling like? Relive that horrible moment, Johnny.
Oh man,
explain it.
It was a day, and I want to try and explain it to where anyone can relate to it, even if you know nothing about wrestling. That's always my goal. So the company continued. Nothing changed after the pandemic. They kept doing weekly television, except it was in front of no audience.
Right.
The entire company shifted operations to Orlando. So still TV every week. I would go to NXT on Tuesdays if they needed me for interviews. And then the show I was doing play-by-play on was on Friday, along with SmackDown. Right. And I remember it was April 15th, 2020. The show that I was doing play-by-play on, it was called 205 Live, as you know.
Right.
They made the announcement. They decided, hey, the whole next month of shows, we're just going to do feature shows. We're not going to do new content. We're going to do each episode's going to feature one person. I said, okay, well, why don't I write some intros and write some ins and outs, and we'll film them. Okay, great. So that morning, me and one of the camera operators, he's actually a one-man band for the company. He's still there. He's incredible. Very good friend of mine. We talk all the time. Him and I filmed in one of the rings in the Performance Center. You know, he lit it perfectly, made it look super cool, did all my intros and outros and blah, blah, blah. We finished at like 11 a.m. and we all got a text message on our work phones saying there's a company-wide digital conference at noon. Everyone watch. I'm like, okay. And I wasn't scheduled at TV that day, because at that point, like, if you didn't have to be there, they didn't want you there because of,
COVID. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. So I go home and I'm feeling good about myself. I'm like, we just filmed all these intros. Like, it's going to be pretty cool. I'm excited. I love doing that stuff. And, it's literally a 2-minute thing with the big guy in charge. Talking to the camera. And to be honest, a lot of it went over my head. He just said, in these uncertain times, changes have to be made. And I kind of got the message like, okay, there's going to be some cuts.
Right.
But I didn't think much of it.
Yeah.
About 5 minutes later, I tried to send an email from my company email to connect my camera guy with the editors up in Connecticut, and the email didn't work. I'm like, okay. Try the email again. Doesn't work. I'm like, okay, let me log out, log back in. I log out, and now I can't log back in. I'm like,
oh no.
It's still not hitting me. I'm like, okay.
So just like, let me get a new computer. I'm gonna buy a new computer. Yeah.
I'm like, there's just we just had this company-wide conference. There's some issues in the internet. Okay. Then 5 minutes later, I get a phone call, and it's from the very same person who hired me almost a year to the day.
Oh man.
And that's when it hit me. I'll never forget. I'm holding my phone and I see his name. And I remember thinking to myself, I may have even said out loud, I go, oh God. And answer the phone. I'm like, hello. And his voice was shaky, because you can tell he felt so uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the words. I think he had a verbatim thing he had to say. And he's like, due to the changes, cuts have to be made. And unfortunately, we have to release you from your contract today. And I remember we ended up talking for about 6 minutes. I think part of it was just me reacting. Just like, I even said 3 times, like, are you serious with this? Like, dude, I kid you not. Shortly before the pandemic hit, I was told I was about to be made like a permanent employee. There was a possibility of me calling a few matches on the kickoff show at WrestleMania in Tampa Stadium. Like, I'm telling you, like, the kind of stuff where you're like, oh my God, it's happening. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
everything I did for the company, I loved it. And it was all little incremental things. And like, yeah, sure. Once I'm calling weekly television, big step. But dude, when you're told like, hey, we want you to call a couple things at WrestleMania and we want you to be a permanent employee, not an independent contractor. That's the kind of stuff you're like, oh my God, I think I have a home.
Right. Yeah, literally. I might have better get a home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And keep in mind,
Yeah.
I just moved to a new place 2 days earlier.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And you've already been out in Orlando. You left all of us. We waved and said goodbye to you. Um, and through that and you know, we look ahead, we know where you are right now, and you're doing good things, and you got the special that again we're going to be talking about here. But again, that is not an easy path in front of you. You're in a city you moved to. You're sitting there with a phone and an email account that doesn't work anymore, or work phone and email account. Johnny, how does nice guy Johnny, who's there for everybody, deal with that and take that first step forward?
Once again, I think I was almost too professional in a way. Well, keep in mind, like I think 40% of the company lost their jobs that day.
Yeah.
All of the talent were posting about it. Like I've
Mhm.
been released. Here's my bookings email, yada yada. But I care so much about the business. What I
Mhm.
said to myself was, I'm like, you know what? I may have lost my job, but today's not about me. Today is about all the wrestlers who lost their
Yeah.
jobs. They
Yeah.
should be the ones posting. I said, you know what? I'm not going to post because I was told we plan on bringing you back. I said, you know what? I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. I'm going to
Yeah.
deny anything.
Mhm.
Just gonna live. I'm not going to post it, and I never did. And
Mm, mm,
I remember I just kind of sat for a handful of hours, just like thinking. And then, of course, I got some messages from people within the company. I got some phone calls. Most of the broadcast team all reached out, which I really appreciated.
mhm.
Um, and I remember that night rolled around, and I was like, well, I can't just sit here and do nothing. So I looked
Mhm.
into the process. I'm like, how do I get my physical therapy license transferred to Florida?
Right. Right.
Started that process. But the only way I knew how to cope with it was like I just started hiking a lot. I would just drive anywhere I could to different parts of Florida
Mm.
just to hike. I would drive 100 miles, 120 miles, 150 miles just to hike for a couple of hours because there was, there was nothing going on at that point, and
Yeah.
all my friends were at work and I couldn't
Yeah.
go to work anymore.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I'm telling you, I just spent a couple of months by myself, just hoping that that wasn't the end of
Yeah.
that story. But then a whole new story started a couple months later.
Yeah, take me to that. Yeah, and I really get what you're saying is that's those moments you have, those long, dark tea times of the soul. You're kinda sitting there, and planning it, and, I think it's brave, in your own way for you to immediately go, "Alright, well, I have this, I do this, I have the PT side. I don't wanna shy away from that." It's not even going back, it's just that's part of my life. I think that's admirable as well because other people might be like, don't want to accept the reality and don't want to take what they might consider a step back. I like that you were like, no, then we move forward with that, even if that's difficult to believe.
Especially because Florida was such a disaster during the pandemic. I was like, well, I imagine there's hospitals that need my help, as a
Yeah,
PT, and you know, I
mm,
wasn't afraid to go in. I was like, you know what, I'm a supplement fiend. I built my immune system really well. I said, you know what, I think I can do it. And so, but I will say the most surreal moment. Once again, this is not me complaining whatsoever, but
yeah,
I remember months down the road. I want to say it was sometime in the summer, fall of 2020 during like a big peak spike of the pandemic. I
mm,
remember I think I was about to go into like my fifth COVID room of the day, which for a
mm,
PT is a lot.
it's a lot.
But there were moments where half the admissions were COVID.
Mm,
So
mm,
like I got my ET, hazmat, PPA, like PP, everything just
covered.
loaded up to where
Yeah,
you're barely breathing. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, just a number of months ago, I was standing in a ring at Staples Center in front of
mm,
13 plus thousand people with a microphone in my hand.
mhm,
And I said, and now I'm about to go into my fifth COVID room of the day.
mm.
in a hospital in Florida. I'm like, ain't life crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the best way to look at it. Crazy ain't life grand. I'm here, I'm alive, I'm above ground. Because otherwise, yeah, I can get lost in that. I've been in those spots. I was on the morning show. I was a morning show host. Now I'm sweeping up a movie theater, and then that can spiral out if you're not careful. If you don't have the right
Big
approach.
time.
Yeah. But a new dream emerges, a new life emerges. And I'm telling you, this isn't just that you grew some facial hair from California. It's like we could all see, like, what's Johnny doing? He's got like a beard now. What's going on over there? You
Well, this is
emerged.
very unkempt. I haven't shaved it since I got on the ship.
I don't think you should. You got one more show. Yeah, no, it looks good. No, and that was me and Makuga just going, what is going on out there? It's like a different Johnny, and you emerge with some love. You emerge with a family, a new lease on life, a career, a kicking your butt career wise, comedy wise. I mean, that's a lot to boil down into a little story. But when did that journey begin? Out of this dark.
Well, I'm trying to think. When did we fly out and hang out with you and Makuga with Good People Network?
2021.
That's what I thought. Yeah, it was like over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, we ended up meeting. The first time we met was at a coffee shop in Tampa. She did not even know that I lived in Orlando. But as pandemic, I was like, I don't care. I'll drive to Tampa. And we sat outside of this coffee shop and talked for like 4 hours. I had a cold brew. She didn't even order anything. Now I realize it's because she doesn't like drinking coffee later in the day, but I didn't know her at the time. I just thought she was being polite. And yeah, we just talked for like 4 hours, and I was like, I've never met anyone like this. And things moved along pretty quickly. And yeah, I mean, she convinced me to do the special because life did a 180, and she's been with me through all these mental struggles and mental battles with myself, wondering like, well, what's next for me career wise? Like shit, like when you get something taken away because you mess up or it's performance based, that's one thing. But when a global pandemic takes away stuff, you're like, well, all right, cool. When is karma going to help me out? Like, what's the deal? But
I'm owed one, right? I'm owed one.
But I realized it brought me something else instead. And because before her, I didn't know if I was ever gonna settle down. I didn't know if I already figured out I probably wasn't gonna have a family because I don't know. I was just so laser focused and tunnel vision that now everything's changed and for the better, so.
Yeah, well, but even that change, that could be overwhelming. A whole new life, you meet this wonderful person, but she doesn't. The package isn't just her. There's a family with it. There's changes. Again, you're still on a different coast than maybe you've been. I know you were raised, and you're not a California kid, but everything's still discombobulated, and so you still have to embrace that change. You still have to realize it's happening. And how did you? And that's something difficult for me and a lot of folks. It's change is the biggest problem we all face, whether it's politics and social issues and empathy for others, and how do you change your approach versus just how do you take that next step after a big change in your life? And did you have that moment where like, okay, if I step forward, if we get a coffee in the morning so she can have coffee, this changes everything, or did it just happen gradually and you were happy to go with that flow?
It definitely happened gradually, but I think the biggest decision was when we decided, okay, we're going to all move to California. That was the thing. I'm like, okay, we're moving together. We're going to be in a house together. Holy moly. Because when I was in Florida, I was still holding out hope of getting my job back because I was told it was going to happen. But unfortunately, timing sometimes works for us. Sometimes timing works against us. In this case, it didn't work, and we made a life decision. We're going to move. And so we did. That's when it really hit me. And I'll be honest, the first handful of months after moving were really tough for me because I was so used to just being by myself.
Yeah.
That I didn't know how to be myself with everybody there. And to this day, it's still a bit of a struggle. I'm finally getting to that point to where her and I, like, to where I can have a little more fun in the house and I can really be myself. But at first, dude, it was hard. I was feeling suffocated due to nobody's fault.
Right.
It was just my stubborn ass, old brain.
Oh, the old guy. Now it's like a sitcom. That's a great way to look at relationships or any relationship advice. As how do we find out the best way to be ourselves while also still growing within this construct? That's I don't know. I don't have any advice on that. Maybe it's also we still have to get through, but I really like that approach. Like
the only way is talking, and she's forced me to talk. Like I've never been much of a, like, I have a joke in my special about like the love languages where, like, hers were 3 actual love languages and mine were, silence, alone time, and being emotionally unavailable. Like,
great joke. Yeah.
It was really true. Like, that was me. Like, I was not comfortable talking about anything below 1 level. And she is all about talking things deeper than that because she's been through so much in her life. I mean, her life, I mean, she's slowly working on a book. Her life from start to now is just, she's overcome so much and achieved so much that she blows me away. So for her, being open and talking, it's like breathing. For me, being open and talking, it's like having 3 hands around my neck. Like, nah, we can't do this.
I love that.
But that's the only way to get to that point where everybody's comfortable. And she still has to initiate it a lot of times because, like, everyone in the house has a different personality. And, I went from being all I focus on is career. What's next? Now I have all these different pieces that I'm trying to balance. And sometimes I let it just bleh, 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 and like bottle up in here. And she's like, okay, time to talk. What's the deal? And that's honestly, it's the easiest answer is just, you have to talk things. You have to communicate with things. Like she even says all the time, she sees a lot of couples in both my life and on her side of things that they don't talk about stuff. And then it gets to the point where it goes far beyond repair.
Yeah. Breaks.
So her thing is, no. We're going to talk. If anything comes up, we're talking about it right now. We are not waiting. We're talking about it right now. And within the next half hour, we're going to be at a better point than we are now. And I've never operated like that, but that's the way she operates. And she's like, I'm not letting anything stop us from being the best we can be together. And she's right. I think about how many friends we both have who marriages have crashed and burned in a matter of a couple years due to dumb shit.
Yeah. Lightning speed. Yeah, no, excellent. Well, no, and having met her even just for a moment and knowing just a tiny portion of her story, strength is definitely a word that would come to mind, and this it carries weight that she's like, no, this is how you get through stuff, and I would listen to her. Sign me up. I'll life coach. I'll let her life coach me. Probably need it. I probably need it. This does lead to what we've been talking about, and this is what you and I, we talk or text when we can or when we do. Life zooms by us all, but I'm so happy to see you put out this next special and do it on your own, and this you described as a passion project, but it's almost a simple way to describe something that's your life's work at this point. Saudi Stepdad's the name of the special. It's on your YouTube channel. It's doing great. Take me through getting that. You mentioned earlier, your wife said, I'm going to help you do this. Are you going to do this? I'm going to push you to this. Cause all of this is not easy. It's not easy from writing the jokes to getting the theater, to lighting it, to shooting it, to editing it, to promoting it. It's not easy.
Dude, you know what it's like as a comic. If you are not working every single weekend, it's hard to be consistent. You know what I mean? Like, and there's only a very, very tiny group of comics who are consistently working every weekend, who are being booked, who are selling tickets, who are on the road. And for me, my spots were like very few and far between. But she goes, you need to shoot a new special. Like, you can talk about me. You can talk about us. I think people are going to relate to it no matter what. And she's like, we can caption it in Arabic so my audience will understand it, which she ended up spending. I hired someone to caption it in Arabic. She did it completely wrong. Like, She did it word for word. The problem is, word for word, it doesn't come across as funny or jokes or anything.
Just, yeah, the
So,
translation.
yeah, so Amal had to spend almost 2 full days recaptioning the entire special, God bless her, but now she
Yeah,
captioned it in such a perfect way that people are reading the captions and getting the jokes, and they're understanding it, which is super cool, you know?
that's awesome.
Um,
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, she pushed me to do it. I started, like, really working on structuring the whole thing. I tried to get as many spots as I could, which, you know, really isn't that easy. Uh,
No, I'll tell you, no.
no, and I found, I became friends with a guy who is a comic himself. He's got
Mm.
a production company with his best friend since, like, kindergarten, and they work all over the world. They're like Charlize Theron's personal team. They're Joe's personal team. They 501c3s everywhere, but they're like, dude, we want to shoot a special. Could we shoot yours? I'm like, oh, I guess I will shoot a special. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. We're doing it.
And so
So
we did it. And
we did it.
I want it to be a small room. I want it to be intimate. I want it to be conversational. And
Mm.
that's kind of how I think it
Oh,
hopefully that's how it came out.
no, there's a lot of warmth to it. There's not other than the humor's there. That joke you mentioned earlier was one that was absolutely one of my favorites. It's personal. It's all those things you said, but there's a warmth to it. There's such a joy to it, and the people there in that audience are there for you in a way beyond just attending a comedy show. You felt that it comes through. It's
That's the
it's one of the
goal.
warmest, yeah, one of the warmest specials I've ever seen.
That's the goal. Thank you, man. Cause you know, her and I deal with a lot of stuff. Like,
Mm,
she's got a big, her following on social media is around a couple of million, you know,
mm,
and, but an American audience, I don't even see a lot of the stuff we deal with because I don't see all the comments, but even it's translated over to my stuff now to where majority of people are super supportive, but you're always
mm,
going to get that contingent where just they see us together, automatically they're not going to like it without even
mm,
knowing us. And
mhm,
you know, us being together, now I understand what subtle racism is. It's something that I
mhm.
never experienced before, but now
Correct.
it's something I see, and that's one of the things that I've slowly learned, even with our kids. If our kids say something,
Mhm,
instead of just trying to say, "No, no, no, don't wait, that didn't. It's not like that. It's not like that."
mm.
Now I'm like, "Oh, really?" Like I take what they say and I believe them
Yeah. Mm,
because
mhm.
my idea, I always want the world to be perfect. I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. Unfortunately, you can't. And
Yeah.
we've gone through enough stuff, whether it be in person or not, to where there is a lot of undertones. And especially when you add to it, you know, not just being mixed culture,
Mhm.
but you know, in America, a lot of people are conditioned to just have a problem with people from the Middle East, you know,
Yeah.
which is crazy to me. This is America, like everyone should be accepted, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's really opened my eyes a lot to where it's like if she says something, now I just believe it. If the kids say something, now I just believe it and I understand it. But it took me a while to get to that point because, you know, I don't like to me it was like I don't like things being cloudy, but I'm like, well, unfortunately the world is pretty fucking cloudy.
It's cloudy. No, I think no, Johnny, that's a valuable insight. We all can go through life, and if we don't directly experience it, then we'd have a natural. It's not even about not believing it. You don't even need to acknowledge. You and I don't need to acknowledge that. If we can go through our life with our head in the clouds, not acknowledging that, if we don't choose to have empathy and compassion for other people's story, and then you get to experience a little bit more directly, yeah, no, it's I think it's pretty valuable what you're saying, and you come to the point of being again, I keep going back, but a nice guy who just wants to make everything work. And hey, benefit of the doubt is a great way to look at it. I'm kind of like that too. I was like that for years, and that caused me to not listen, not because I didn't want to listen to anybody, but I just, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Because that stuff's not fun. Like it's
Not fun.
emotionally not fun. It's better to just be blissfully unaware of shit. It's
Hmm.
life's easier that way. But you know,
Yeah.
with the life I have now, I can't be blissfully unaware anymore because if not, if I'm that way, then I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good father. So
Mm.
they have forced me in the best way possible to be tougher, to not be afraid to stand up for myself. Like there's a
Mm.
joke I didn't put in the special where I say, you know, she taught me how to stand up for myself. And she asked me, like, why are you so afraid to stand up for yourself? I'm like, I don't know, because I'm a straight white dude. I've never had to. Like, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, whereas like she has to stand up for herself constantly.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's still a learning process, but now, you know, I realize I'm like, look, we are literally are a team, and we have to
Mm.
stand up together no matter what. And that's something that
That's
you know,
beautiful.
big learning process.
No, that's beautiful. And the specials, again, it reflects all this there. But you and I started talking too, and I want to transition to some talk about the worlds we work in and have worked in. Um, the getting the word out about the special. That's the thing. You know, I wrote a book and having to promote that and getting people to pay attention. The
I
algorithms.
bought it.
You did buy. I got an album of songs coming out that I co-wrote in a week. I got to work on getting that word out. That's the hardest thing, and you sometimes need help of others. And you said something to me that was sad. You said there's been like 2 comics, you and Mark Ellis, who have promoted my, and I'm sure others came on board, and you can clarify that. But
A handful tops.
and they've promoted that I'm doing a special or promoted the special. No one else has, but the wrestling world has. They're so interchangeable sometimes, the comedy worlds and the wrestling world, the stand up and the wrestling worlds. But that's a stark difference, I think. That the camaraderie of a wrestling locker room and a promotion versus us bitter comics.
Yeah, I say it all the time. Because people ask, they're like, well, you know, what do you really enjoy more? I said, I'll be honest with you. I enjoy working in professional wrestling more because I love working with a team. That, to me, that just makes my heart warm. When I'm part of a team and we're working towards a goal and we make something great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I say the difference between pro wrestling and comedy is, in pro wrestling, if you are not good to work with, for the most part, your career is going to have a very short shelf life. You know,
Yeah.
you have to know how to work with other people. You have to be unselfish. Whereas in stand up, you could be the biggest, most ruthless, obnoxious, arrogant prick and still get success. And there's insecure people in both. I've just found way more insecure people to be in stand up. And so, like, I did it almost as an experiment when I put out my joke about I have a joke about pro wrestling. When I posted it on Twitter, it did really well, but it's because of the wrestling community.
Wrestling
comics have and I'm friends with a lot of comics, but you know, I left in 2019. I haven't really been back in the scene. Well, people forget about you and they stop giving a shit. And I'm not about to text friends, but hey, could you please retweet my thing? No, like, dude, if you're not gonna support, then
I feel you on that too. When it's my fault for leaving comedy a few times, but this last time I've come back, it's permanent. I love doing it, and it's tumbleweeds, not the bar. It's tumbleweeds, just in front of people who remember me.
It's just Sam Elliott's voice.
Yeah.
He'd been gone for 12 years, and he's back on the scene.
He swears a lot more now. And look at it, and it's easy to understand. Comedy is, if there's a show of 10 people, it's 10 individuals trying to make sure they get the best laugh. I understand where that comes from, but like when the fictional comic you described, the unworkable prick is going to get rewarded, it seems, more often than that. And again, not that wrestling is perfect, with wonderful personalities that have never sinned before the eyes of the Lord. But in my time in the wrestling locker rooms, most of my time was Millennium Pro Wrestling. Like, the idea is if there's 20 of you on the show, the 20 of you have to come together to put the best show for the audience. And so you feel that in the community after it. That's why I like still going. I haven't been a couple years, but Cauliflower Alley Club and a lot of the alumni associations or things like that. Like, the connection is real. Where with comedy, it's obviously guarded. All right, so if you're watching, here's what happened. We were mid conversation. I was just rambling about the differences between stand up and pro wrestling locker rooms, and Johnny got up and left. No, the internet took you away, Johnny. You're on a cruise ship. You should expect this.
I will say though, I've been impressed with the streaming Wi-Fi this entire cruise. This is the first time this has happened on the cruise to where it just stabbed me and then ran away.
But this is the theme of our conversation, Johnny. I started to give up hope. I even like was going to record an outro saying, "Hey, we lost Johnny. We'll bring him back some other time." But we had some good stuff. But you stuck through it, man. You're like, "No, I'm getting this thing working." And this is the theme for your life. I think we just learned a
Yeah,
valuable lesson.
like Adam Sandler said in Billy Madison, you get out there, you find that fucking dog.
You find that fucking dog. The time we have left, because also work, because you said you have some cruise ship neighbors who think you're too loud, and maybe they've unplugged some wires. We were comparing
They have
comedy.
called 2 or 3 times on me.
Good old rock and roll LOQUASTO. That I know.
You know, here's the thing. I'm recording voiceover auditions and stuff, and throughout the time, and honestly, I'm just talking at a room. I'm talking at a reasonable volume, but the walls are very thin. I guess I don't know.
And they're ballroom dancers. You said they got to rest up. They got to rest up. I understand. I understand.
They have to count 5, 6, 7, 8.
You do. We were talking comedy and wrestling. You and I got to spend some time together in a wrestling ring. Thankfully, they didn't have us work a match. Me as Tex Tony, you as owner operator of MPW Johnny LOQUASTO. That was a lot of fun. What makes a good wrestling storyline match moment for you? There's so many. That's a wide open question, I know, but what are the things that you gravitate?
I don't think it's just what makes a good wrestling story. I think wrestling stories can be synonymous with a TV story, a movie story. There's got to be a personal connection. There's got to be something that you root for, and there's got to be something that you root against. And I know people keep trying to invent the wheel, but the wheel doesn't need to be reinvented. The wheel works the way it does because human beings aren't, human beings are essentially still the same. Like we want to root for something. We want to root against something, and we want the story to relate to us in some way. So to me, that's why I think when done right, pro wrestling can be the greatest form of live entertainment because it's literally got everything you could ever ask for, but when it's done poorly, it could also be one of the most ridiculous things you've ever seen.
And it becomes legendary in its own way. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's some of all the things I've been fortunate to do in my career, there's just some of those moments in MPW, a little, a humble fed in Simi Valley, California, now based out of Chatsworth. They're still going strong. But there's some of those moments where even when I had stopped, for a while, I stopped portraying Tex Tunney, was just kind of helping in the back and everything, just putting together a member of the Battle Royal, which we had the local kid who was 18 and he won and he tossed out, Terex, the 400-pound monster at the end. And it just, and 300 people, friends and family of his, just cheering in a way that you don't get other spots. It's pretty special when it works. It's a great art.
Yeah. And I think that's one of my favorite things about working in wrestling, and especially like whether it's WWE or whether it's anywhere else I'm working, when you see kids smiling, like that's the greatest because it takes you back to when you were a little kid. I still remember my very first wrestling event when I was like 6 or 7 years old. And one of the coolest compliments I got was from one of the producers at the live events. We were doing like an NXT live event, but then eventually I started doing the SmackDown live events in the big arenas. But the NXT live events, we were doing venues that held like 1,500, something like that. But so I would have to do little live hits to where the camera would be on me. I'd be doing a little segment with the crowd and yada, yada. But after that segment ended and the light went off me, I would always just make sure all the kids were happy. And I would just walk around like fist bump them, high five them, talk to them and their parents for a couple of seconds before going to the back. And one of the producers said to me one time, he goes, he's like, how I can tell you really love this? Because you take the time to do that when you don't have to. And to me, I was just like, well, why wouldn't I? Like, there's nothing better than seeing people happy and seeing kids. This is you'd be surprised at how many people do the bare minimum and move on. I'm like, oh, that means to me. Like, I'm always cognizant of what's like when you're a kid at an event and you original event I ever went to, just a little teeny thing. So if I can maybe give these kids some memory that they're going to talk about years down the road,
I love it, man, and we're starting to lose you a little bit again. So I don't want to go too long and ruin the rest of the cruise for the ballroom dancers. But Johnny, a lot more to tell. When you get back to the mainland, let's get together. Let's get together in real life, but let's get together again. There's so many wrestling stories I want to talk about, and I think you got a powerful message behind all that you do. And it's just what's great is it's just you being you. And that's what drives the message forward. So, Johnny, thank you. Where can they get the special? Tell them where to go support you. And if they need PT, how to make an appointment.
Yeah. Well, if you would like to get PT from an unlicensed, no, JQuasto on all social media is JQUASTO. My special Saudi Stepdad is on my YouTube. It's youtube.com/Johnny LOQUASTO, or just Google Saudi Stepdad. I'm pretty sure it'll pop up. My other special, Physical Therapy, is on Roku, it's on Tubi, all the other platforms. But yeah, dude, it was beyond awesome catching up. Like I said, I appreciate you because you always put out a positive message. I'm trying to do the same thing because no matter what your hustle is in life, my thought process is if you literally put everything you have into what you're doing and you do it with the right energy and you focus on what you can control instead of what you can't, only good things will come out of it. But if you quit, you already know the answer. So that's kind of like my outlook on things.
I love that. If you quit, you know the answer, kids and adults who need the lesson as well. Sometimes I think I could use that reminder as well. Johnny, it's been great. We'll see you. Stick around after the recording stops so I can say goodbye properly. Thanks you all for watching. You know where to find me. Links down below. Moon Angels music is coming out soon. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/Ken Napzok if you want to support. And Mark Ellis and I and Lisa Wallen in Seattle over the holidays, December 22nd, 23rd, doing comedy at the Capitol Hill Comedy/Bar. Go check out that show if you're local. See you, friends. This has been Blathering Conversations.